The best monk build in Path of Exile 2. This build is so amazing, you will be able to deal with the armies of enemies by yourself. And even bosses will fear you and try to run from you. So, hail and Masha's Kingdom. Welcome to Path of Exile 2, it's me, Spot the King. And today I will give you this amazing Ice Monk build. It's a nice way to start your path as a monk, but also you will be able to continue playing with this style if you pick Invoker Ascendancy. So, let's start with our skills first, because skills determine how we will play and also how we need to build our character to maximize his power. If you build your character correctly, the most underrated skill will be your basic quarterstaff strike, because with correct build you will have mostly unlimited mana throughout the game. Quarterstaff strike is your basic attack. Yeah, it's basic attack and it should be on your hotbar. Some monsters sometime will eat your mana and you won't be able to use any other magic ability, so you will be forced to use this attack. But this attack is insanely powerful. And also don't forget, you can add support skills to it, support gems. I got a Rage, and Rage is insane. It gives me 3 Rage on hit, the buff that will give you 1% more attack damage per 1 Rage. It's really nice and powerful stuff, but probably I will change this gem to my main occult attack later on, but still, it's nice to have it, especially when you just a little bit off the stun threshold to stun your enemy. And yeah, that's why my second gem with this ability is Overpower. Overpower is ability that will give you basically more stun build up on basic attacks, and that's great again in situations when you need just a little bit more stun build up. The idea of the build is to freeze enemies effectively, but also we will be able to deal a lot of stun build up in their process, and this means we can kinda stun lock enemies and bosses a lot. We will build a chilling effect very fast, they will be frozen, and then when they unfreeze we will stun them and deal even more damage, so that's crazy. But our main and coolest ability is Ice Strike, of course. You can quickly press the button or just hold it and you will do fast attacks with ice stuff. Coolest part, the third attack will be Final Strike, and it will be even more powerful. This attack is insane to quickly build up a lot of freeze on enemies and also destroy them in quick succession. The first support gem I'm using on this attack is Martial Tempo. So Martial Tempo will give more attack speed, and that's pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. 25% more attack speed is a lot of damage per second, and since it's our most important and funniest ability to use to become insanely cool like Ice Sub-Zero Monk, that's the way to go, and you can get it really early in the game. The next support gem is Crescendo. Crescendo is insane. It gives us ability to perform 2 final strikes. And it's not actually like 2 final strikes, because when you destroy enemy with this attack, you can make even second and third final strike in a row, and this creates a lot of extra damage for this combination. This support gem is insane, definitely use it on this skill. Later on, when you unlock more slots, again I would say Rage is a nice slot to have, but also you can explore and adjust it as you wish. Another good support gem that you can insert later on in the game is Leverage. Leverage is insane. This skill will give ability to have more critical hit chance against immobilized enemies. Enemies will be immobilized a lot, we will have insane attack speed, and they will be basically frozen or stunned all the time, so that's a great stuff to get a lot more higher critical hit chance. And moving forward a little bit, this build will be enough to destroy campaign of Path of Exile 2 in early access and move towards late game. And make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next builds for Path of Exile 2 when I will show you the full complete Invoker Monk. I post screenshots of my builds in my Discord, so make sure to join there too, and we are going to the next ability. And it will be Frozen Locust. That gives ability to leap backwards and crack the ground with your staff to call an ice crystal. This ability also creates chilled ground around it, and this big rock of ice can be damaged by you and enemies. If the crystal will be destroyed, it will cause an explosion that deals attack damage, and damage is pretty good, it's 300 of normal attack damage. Also, this ability creates a lot of freeze build up, so it's great just to place the stuff on the ground and it will freeze enemies in some time. Great use for this ability is to evade some enemies' attacks and also push yourself back from enemies. You can use it smartly when you're going through the narrow passes, like corridors or doors. You can place it right in the door and enemies won't be able to pass through it, they will be frozen, and then you will destroy them when this ice rock will be melted. Or when you destroy it, of course. So this skill in our arsenal is mostly for defensive purposes, and that's why my first support gem will be Magnified Effect. This will give us more area of effect, and the area of frozen field will be a lot higher with this skill. I definitely enjoy how big of an area we can get with just one leap backwards, and it helps to freeze enemies a lot. The first two abilities I showed you is really important for us, but our most important ability is Glacial Cascade, because it's the first ability we will unlock in the game basically. So you're basically throwing down a lot of ice with your quarterstaff by swinging it. It gives you ability to stay from the range from enemies and deal some damage, nice damage and also cold damage. Coolest part, if you attack frozen enemies with this, it will be considered as final strike and will deal heavy damage, but freeze will be consumed. So make sure to be careful and don't attack with this ability if you want your enemies to be frozen and not unfrozen, of course. My favorite support gem for this ability is Glaciation. It will increase freeze build-up by 50%. And yeah, that's ability with not the best freeze build-up in our arsenal still. It's insanely useful against bosses when we can't get close to them and we can attack just from the distance. It's the really bread and butter for you when you can't find a window of opportunity to attack. At the same time, I added Cold Infusion to it. This skill will deal extra damage as extra cold damage and will deal less fire and lightning damage. That's completely fair, we don't need fire and lightning damage with this build. And basically it makes this skill a little bit more powerful since we will use it in some situations and we don't want it to be completely irrelevant as damage deal spell. Combination of these three skills is basically everything you need in the beginning of the game to deal with the Act 1 and even half of Act 2. But later when you advance to the Act 2, you will level up, that's what you want to have. Insanely powerful skill, Wave of Frost. So it will convert 80% of physical damage to cold damage and will deal 180% more freeze build-up. This skill is insane and it also will give you leap backwards, so you can combine it with other leap backwards skills to push yourself away from enemies and also freeze them at the same time. There's a lot of combinations. You can create this ice rock, you will freeze enemies with this new Wave of Frost ability, and you can break the ice rock with your first basic shard ability to destroy it and deal a lot of extra ice damage. So that's the main combination you can use right now. This skill will be used to cover a large distance in ice and deal some damage, but mostly to freeze enemies a lot. So it will create a lot of frozen fields where enemies will be frozen, and then you go and initiate your chain attacks with multiple ice strikes. Since this ability is the best to freeze your enemies, my first support gem is Ice Bite. Ice Bite is pretty cool because you will gain more attack damage as cold damage for 3 seconds when you freeze enemies with this skill. You will freeze enemies a lot, and this basically will give us a lot of extra attack power and damage. The second support skill is Deep Freeze. This will increase freeze duration on enemies when you freeze them with this skill. So again, you freeze enemies with this skill, then they will be frozen for like 5 seconds and you will just destroy them with your basic attacks. That's how it works, and that's incredible. But again, we jumped forward a little bit because the next ability we want to use is Herald of Ice. It's buff ability. You will get your buff when you advance to Act 1 and beat some bosses. You will unlock the spirit powers and you will be able to craft buff gems. So Herald of Ice is great. While active, shattering an enemy with attack hit will cause icy explosions that deals attack damage to surrounding enemies. As you see in the clips on the background of this video, when enemies is destroyed with our attacks, they're basically broken like a bomb, creating explosions that destroys nearby enemies, and we doing final hit after final hit. This creates unlimited possibilities and basically infinite combination of blasts and ice shatters. Make sure to never use support gems on this ability, because you don't have a lot of spirit right now, and with not a lot of spirit while you activating extra support gems on this ability, it will cause it to take more spirit than needed, like 40 or 50 even. And this means you won't be able to use this ability and it will turn off silently, so just make sure to never use support gems until you will get more spirit. Let's get back to Act 2, and another ability you will unlock here is Freezing Mark, because it's pretty like late game-ish and you will need it. You will need it against strong enemies most of the time, because when you advance through the game, enemies will have more protection against your freeze build-up, especially bosses. Freezing Mark marks the target, making them more susceptible to being frozen. Basically, it will increase your freeze build-up on them. And when marked target dies, cold Nova erupts from their corpse. The Nova does not use your weapon damage and instead uses its own base attack damage. Nova is great, but again, it will be mostly useful for you against bosses. You want to keep this freezing mark as long as possible on your enemies. That's why support gem for this skill is Persistence. That will give us 40% more skill effect duration, and that's it basically. So let's take a look at our passive skill tree. When you start as monk, you will have two paths over here, and there's one that will give you evasion and some other protection stuff, which you probably will want to ignore at the beginning, and you actually should do it. And we want to start with skill speed. Increasing skill speed is really important. It will instantly give us extra damage per second, because every skill will be casted a lot faster. So you can treat it as attack speed for some of our speed attack skills and stuff like that. And then we get two nodes with skill speed over here, followed by attack damage. That's what will give you a lot of damage in early game. 10% attack damage is insane, since it basically gives you damage to any attack. Spells are not attacks, but all your staff skills is attacks basically. And don't forget, attacks do not necessarily deal physical damage, they can deal any type of damage, so it also benefits our cold damage. That's the great part, and that's why we're taking two nodes of this attack damage over here, followed by flow like a water. It's just a great buff for us. It gives us dexterity, intelligence, attack speed and casting speed. So a lot of stats basically, and a lot of great bonuses. But what we get next? Next is a hard choice, and it's really hard to make this choice as monk. Do you want a little bit of life on enemy killed, increasing your evasion rating, and even increasing maximum energy shield, critical hit chance maybe, or chance to shock? No, none of them right now. So from the beginning of the game, you actually will be in a lot of troubles if you're going into this road. While there's definitely nice notes like skill speed, mana regeneration, you won't need it a lot. And here you will find a lot of pretty much like defensive or useless stuff at this part of the tree. That's why instead of continuing in this way, we need to start another one, which also will be a mistake. So as you can see, there is a connector over here, evasion and energy shield, that will give us high evasion and energy shield in percentage. Yeah, we will lose a little bit of mana regeneration, but as I told you, it's not so important for us. We can live without this mana regeneration. And if you follow this road from the start, you will need to spend 3 nodes, 3 skill points over here. Instead, we take in evasion, mindful awareness, and evasion energy again over here. This is great stats, followed by step like mist for increased movement speed, 15% increased mana regeneration, and 5 to dexterity and intelligence. Great rune over here. So where to go next? One of the ideas you can have is to go into this part to get Essence of the Mountain, gain 5% damage as extra cold damage, and increase freeze build-up. So while it's definitely a smart idea to increase your freeze build-up when you're playing Cold Monk, it actually isn't. So yeah, we're getting a little bit of extra cold damage, freeze build-up, but you saw my build. We don't need these runes at all. We will have like a lot of freeze build-up. About these two parts basically over here, you actually can take 2 points in this place when you're just starting out, because it's the first freeze build-up runes instantly. But when we get to the next part of the tree, which will be basically a straight line to the right, that's where you want to completely forget about this too. So where are we going? On the right side. And basically over here we're getting some attribute points, so I got a little bit of strength, since strength is life and I enjoyed having more armor in the beginning of the game. And you know, in the beginning you don't have a lot of evasion, so you can't actually evade a lot of shots. That's why strength and some armor is a great idea. And I got 2 points in strength here just to equip some armor in the beginning. But then we're switching to dexterity and intelligence based character. So our character will be based on dexterity, intelligence and a little bit of strength, but we will forget strength when we move into the late game. So main way to avoid our damage will be evasion. Evasion grants chance to avoid strikes, which is melee attacks, but slam doesn't count as melee attacks, so you need to avoid slams with rolling, and projectiles also can be evaded. Another part of our protection will be energy shield, and that's basically what we are building for in the mid-late game. We're getting a lot of dexterity, intelligence, and I will explain weapons and armors a little bit later. Right now let's get back to 3. So then I got some dexterity nodes to increase my evasion, some intelligence, and mostly I'm getting points based on the gear I have right now. So basically, if you see that you got nice gear with high intelligence requirements, then just get this intelligence node, and I respec them pretty often, so just don't fear to pick wrong stats over here, because you can respec them really easily. And basically, if we zoom out, as you can see, we're going right to the right side. In the right side there's a Javel socket, and you can actually learn this stuff, but you won't have Javel socket in the beginning of the game. That's completely not a problem. And why we're going right here instead of taking a little bit longer way with freeze build up? As I told you, you can have freeze build up and start your way to the right side. So that's the main idea. But when you get over here, you're getting one more attribute point, and then we're getting this quarter staff speed. So it will increase attack speed with quarter staffs, which basically gives us nice damage per second increase. 3% attack speed gives around 5% damage per second, and we're leveling it to the top part. So that's where it's located on the skill tree, so you can see. And we got increased attack speed with quarter staffs, we got one more increased attack speed with quarter staffs, and then we got Whirling Assault, 8% increased attack speed with quarter staffs and knockback enemies if you get a critical hit with quarter staff. So this will give us a lot of survivability with critical hits, since we will knock back enemies, and it's useful especially later when they become even more beefier. And then we got this rune over here, so it's quarter staff freeze and days build up. We got 20% increased days and 20% increased freeze in one skill, just with one skill point. If you don't know, days is basically its effect of some skills, and days will increase stun build up. It will be useful for us later when we advance through this build, but right now we actually care about freeze build up mostly. And these two parts over here with 20% increased freeze build up, that's everything I got for freeze build up in this build. And as you can see, we got insane chances to freeze enemies at this point of the game, so we get no problems to freeze them every time. Because then we got one last one with the river, 30% increased days, freeze and stun build up with quarter staffs, and most importantly 30% increased defenses while building a staff. I don't know if it's actually counts as quarter staff, since it's not quarter staff, it's staff, but whatever, it's great freeze build up over here, and basically we get plus 100% freeze build up just by picking this part. Next part is also great, we got more attack speed on bottom, more accuracy, critical damage increase with plus 25 to dexterity, so we can get more intelligence basically over here. But why I'm not taking this right now? Since critical strike increase is great, it won't give us a lot of damage actually, and if you're going for it initially, you will lose a lot. We will take it later when we advance a little bit to the later parts of the game, to the Act 3. For example, but as a build starter you don't need these runes, and instead we're going back. So where are we going back? I'm zooming out and we're getting over here, so that's basically where we're getting 10% attack damage, then 10% attack damage once again, and attack damage is just insane. You see, it's got such a nice damage boost for our skills and abilities, and basically then we're getting a little bit of increased mana leech. And mana leech can be your additions to your weapons, armors, probably only 2 weapons, but whatever. And then we got one more attack damage increase and one more increase attack damage, but only against rare or unique enemies, so against yellow and blue guys. And actually they're really tanky, so it's a great buff for us over here. And will increase our damage a lot against these guys, and also some nice critical hit chance. There's another rune over here that will give us more like stable damage against everyone, and increase accuracy against rare or unique enemies, and definitely pick those 2. So that's the build starter for level 28 right now, level 30, and with this build we're going for Invoker subclass, of course. It will be Invoker, and where are we going with Invoker? With Invoker, first of all, I invested in 15% increasing to magnitude of my chill effects, and also 10% damage as extra cold damage. So that's also a nice skill over here that gives a lot of damage to our skills and abilities. And then I will get 2 points in increasing elemental damage and unbound avatar. So that's basically where I will go later. And then, when I will be able to unlock points number 6 and number 8, we will get more critical hit chance, and critical hits will ignore elemental resistances of enemies. So that's a great part over here. We will be building into a lot of crit, and basically my idea to have a lot of stun, daze, crit and chill to basically stun lock my enemies, especially in the later stages of the game. And then we get in more critical hit chance, and finally we get in elemental expression, which is a spell that should be able to do some fun stuff. And elemental expression will be triggered on critical hit, so that's kind of smart stuff to have. And that will be the full build for Invoker. But where you can go next with your skill points? I will give you build ideation towards late game right after I will explain what weapons I'm using and what stats to look for. So right now I'm using Vortex Pillar, Steel Point, Quarterstaff, but again, you just need any Quarterstaff with nice physical damage, and you want to have added cold damage as your prefix, suffix, whatever. Basically, you want to have this cold damage bonus on your Quarterstaff, but physical damage bonus is also nice, because some of the abilities will convert physical damage to cold damage anyway. So basically that's kinda smart and straightforward stuff. You just want nice Quarterstaff with some cold damage. What you're looking for is also something to heal yourself, especially against hordes of enemies. So gaining life on enemy kill is nice, and mana regeneration is nice. And basically that's it, what you're looking for your weapon. Since we're building with a lot of intelligence and dexterity, and to learn your skills you need same stats for your dexterity and intelligence, your attribute requirements will be basically the same all the time, you want to look for armors, and that using the same stats, basically dexterity and intelligence. It will increase your evasion rating as well as energy shield. Energy shield will help us survive initial attacks when enemies hits us, and evasion rating will make sure that enemies not hitting us all the time, and pretty much like not hitting us at all. For armors, again, you're looking for something with dexterity and intelligence based stuff. It goes the same for every armor piece, and all that you're looking for is some evasion rating, energy shield, and resistances. I would suggest you having a lot of fire resistance right after you hit Act 2, because all major, crazy enemies will be with fire attacks. Still, you want to have all resistances kept, and towards the end of Act 2 you even want to have some chaos resistance, but basic idea is to have your resistances kept as much as possible. For your Chivalry, again, you're looking for nice resistances as well as some bonuses to your cold attack damage. And now let's talk how we can end the build and where we can go next. You can get a little bit of more days and get days build up with your skill points, with your passive skill gems. Over here is nice part, you just need to spend 1 attribute point and you will have critical damage bonus against enemies who are on full life. So that's a great like part for speed farming. If you want to just destroy enemies, like basic enemies, not bosses of course, you can have this and you will basically one-shot a lot of guys easily with a lot of crits. To the left part from this node there is cold penetration with more cold penetration and also increasing chill duration on enemies. Another useful part will be over here. It's right from the start of the tree. We're going to this attribute point, getting 2 nodes of attack damage, followed by 24 additional attack damage. That's like completely broken part. We will increase our damage a lot. And then we can continue our way on top, get over here and to the right part. So here is another nice damage part. 10% attack damage, 10% damage, and then followed by attack damage when on full life and attack damage when on low life. So there's crazy stuff. With our energy shield we will be on full life most of the time and it's already nice bonus, but 50% damage when we are on low life, also great. And on the bottom is nice attack speed increase, also gives a lot of damage. So that's the damage runes you can go initially with your skills. And if you feel you need a little bit more protection, then you definitely need evasion rating. So for evasion rating we can go and start over here. That's great. Basically we will have more evasion rating and more energy shield, more evasion rating and energy shield, and based on your helmet you can have more evasion rating per your maximum energy shield. This will give you ability to pick a helmet with just intelligence based stat instead of intelligence dexterity, or anyway you will have a lot of bonuses. So then we get a little bit of evasion over here too, increase evasion rating by 15%, and then increase evasion rating when on full life, and that's great stuff. You will be on full life most of the time and you will evade most of the attacks basically. There's another evasion rating over here, right from our Javel socket. We can go down 1 point and we will have ability to evade all hits, but we will have 70% less evasion rating. So it's problematic node because it will reduce our protection like a lot, and I would say you can go for it in extreme late game if you will be able to achieve 90% evasion over here, but right now I will have 0, so it probably will be a lot later in the game. But actually that's a nice part to increase your evasion, so definitely think about this part too. We can have this attribute point and then we will have a lot of increasing evasion ratings over here. What is interesting is these big parts. It's bestial skin, 100% increase in evasion rating from body armor, very nice, and 30% increase evasion rating with 8% increase in dexterity. Yeah, dexterity is great. Here we will have a lot more dexterity, so we can get 25 dexterity here. And then we're basically going to the left, getting dexterity and attack speed, dexterity, attack speed, dexterity, attack speed, and 1% attack speed per 15 points of dexterity. At this point, I would say you want this part a little bit later, but you will have crazy amount of dexterity and attack speed, of course. But if you will decide to get a little bit more daze and stun, then definitely think about this part over here. So we can get, so that's where we are on a skill tree. We can get to the top part, and to the right there will be a stun build up and knockback distance. Again, we got some knockback when we critical hit. That's a great part over here. And then over here to the top with Javel socket, and here is physical damage, more days build up, critical hit chance with more physical damage, basically nice damaging nodes that will definitely increase our power, knockback distance, and most importantly stun and days build up, so it will give us ability to shatter our enemies a lot. Another thing to think about is this part of the tree. You can get 3 points over here, increasing critical hit chance. That's basically the start of the tree, if you can't remember. And then more damage if you dealt a critical hit in past 8 seconds. We will deal a lot of crits, so that's a smart part and smart powerful node over here. Then more critical hit chance, 1 attribute point, and then we can have nice critical hit chance and critical damage bonus in this part. And if we ever will deal non-critical damage, then we will have increased critical damage in this part. And then we got basically 1 step on the top, 1 more step with attribute point, and 1 more. This will lead us over here to the part with a lot of critical hit chance. But Instead of going to the top, you actually can go from this critical damage to the right part, and then to the top right. So top right will give us and get us over here, where you will see that you can have increased spell damage while wielding a melee weapon. You don't need it. You just know that you are in the right place. Go to the top right, to the top left, and you will find this critical damage bonus over here. So overall, we can have around 100 critical damage bonus in this place, which is a lot of damage actually. Some bonuses to intelligence, which is also useful for us. Bonuses to dexterity also, so basically our parts that we need for our build, and more. 20% increased damage if you dealt critical hit recently, so basically we can have like 40% more damage if we dealt a critical hit, and then 30% more with 12% increase more critical hit chance. I hope you enjoyed the build and you will have blast playing it in Path of Exile 2. Make sure to watch other cool videos on the screen right now and see you there.